15 minutes of fame.
The level layout, while being widely recognisable as a hotel facsimile, continues to only partly resemble a hotel and makes very little sense if you stop to actually think about it. Rooms come from and go to nowhere, stairs are oddly placed, closets are randomly scattered around. This doesn't actually represent any hotel that actually exists. I do like this sightline though, through the top of a bricked up corridor with a vending machine by it. This will be a lovely navigation beacon when we see through it from the other side later. And then one of these stranger touches in the game. Sometimes you'll find a TV, and it's playing a show, which they went to the trouble of actually recording decent voice lines for, like this entire episode of Lords and Ladies.
My lady.
My lord?
My lady, there is a matter of great importance I must bring to your attention.
My lord, there is?
Indeed, my lady, there is indeed. From the very first moment we met, upon that distant forest path, there has been sunlight in the autumn leaves blazing like the colors of your hair.
Oh, my lord, you should not speak so.
But, my lady, I must.
My lord, no! I forbid you. This cannot be. This must not be.
But why, my love, why?
My lord, it is too dreadful. Do not force me to speak the words.
My lady, I beg of you, I must know. I would rather die than not know.
Yes, my lord, we should both be dead, for this shame is too great for the living. My lord, I am your long-lost sister.
Max Payne 1 only contains that episode, but in Max Payne 2 and 3 more episodes are added and they fully flesh out the Lords and Ladies cinematic universe. In the bathroom you'll find more V-junkies. They're not aggressive, but they can randomly start attacking you, so it's smart to kill them anyway. I like this smoking cigarette in the ashtray. Another little example of a small touch of set dressing really adding to the general atmosphere of a place without being mechanically relevant, or how if you turn on this TV it explodes. They're only small touches, but this again highlights a major issue with the overall quality of the experience, and again it refers to gameplay. And to fully explain it, I'll need to break down the levels of interaction. Consider storytelling, or the experience of going through a story, on 3 levels. The highest level is the overarching plot, the themes, the more ephemeral nature of what you want the audience to feel overall. For Max Payne, that would be gritty film noir, private eye detective story set during a blizzard, themes of loss, tragedy, and revenge. This level of storytelling can include the general overall ambience, the greater setting, the prominence of the snowstorm, which is mentioned repeatedly, the repeated allusion to Norse mythology. All of these greater bits are in the highest level, the kind of level that you would see with a bird's eye view. Let's call this level 3. The middle level, or level 2, is the viewers, in this case players, process of interacting with the world, the movement mechanics, the gunplay, the cutscenes that we can watch. And then the smallest level, let's call this level 1, is the micro design within the world which isn't mechanically relevant but serves to flesh out and help the player's experience feel connected to an overall scale. A TV set exploding when you turn it on shows that the hotel you're in is run down and matches the ambience they're going for. A smoking cigarette in a badly placed ashtray, a door falling off its hinges due to disrepair, NPCs talking amongst themselves and you overhearing. This is all the minute stuff which you could remove, but it would make the game feel empty if you did so. Max Payne is amazing at the highest levels. The general overarching ambience and emotion of the entire experience is fantastic. And it's amazing at the small level, moment-to-moment minutiae of making the world feel lived in. Its weakness, however, is the middle layer, the process of your actual experience of it, you playing the game. If you were to just isolate the mechanical experience of this game, it is undeniably average at best, with very little mechanical difference or growth from the start to the end. And the overall environment or the minutiae is actually very rarely used to enhance or affect the mechanics of gameplay. For example, leaving this room onto the outside ledge, you enter a snowstorm, which has been referenced several times, yet Max moves through it just the same. The audio doesn't change, the animation doesn't change, the control scheme doesn't change. You don't hold your hands up to keep the snow out of your eyes. You don't push through. I'll expand later on exactly how the overall storytelling and the minutiae of the design could be linked to the gameplay. Imagine if you could shoot the cigarette out of the ashtray and set someone on fire. Imagine if you could interact with the vending machine which sprays cans all over the floor which enemies trip over when they run to attack you. The set building should also be involved in the gameplay, but more on this later. Level 3 and Level 1, the overall experience and the minutiae which make it up, exist around Level 2, surrounding it but never interacting with it, which means the gameplay and the overall design feel like they are running simultaneously but never interact intertwining. Finally, we reach room 313, linked to Vinnie Gogniti and Jack Lupino. Opening this door triggers a rigged-up shotgun and almost kills us. The room is empty, but there is a note.
Our investigation had turned up nothing to link Angelo Punchinello, the head of the Punchinello family, to Valkyr. All tracks had ended with Jack Lupino. The letter in Muerte's room was signed by the Don himself. It was the first hint that the Kingpin knew what was brewing inside his syndicate.
The trouble you got into after the Chicago screw-up. The Punchinello family bailed you out. You have been waiting for a chance to pay us back. One of our trusted boys has a monkey the size of King Kong on his back. We need your special skills for backup on a major deal.
Collecting evidence had gotten old a few hundred bullets back. I was already so far past the point of no return I couldn't even remember what it looked like when I had passed it.
The crime family network is becoming more and more tangled, with various underlings all vying for various power, and this perfectly highlights the problems with the level 3, 2 and 1 of storytelling. The overall design of detective story is great, and the small focus design of shotgun on chair when you enter the room is again great. But the more player-focused moment-to-moment of exactly who are you chasing right now and why begins to get a little bit muddled. Run into this bathroom and die to a shotgun blast, and this is probably a good time to point out something which will become increasingly obvious. Max Payne is really hard. The shotgun is a one-hit kill against you, and in later levels you will die again, and again, and again, to snipers, super accurate machine gunners on other rooftops, unseen shotgunners, and endless waves of grenades you simply cannot get away from fast enough. Now, I have no problem with hard games, but I do expect them to be fair, and the designers need to have tied the difficulty and pacing together. If you want to flood a room with enemies, that's fine, but the player needs time to see the flood starting, find cover, get ammo, and fight back. You want the player to remain on that knife edge of intensity, not winning too easily, but equally not killing them in an unavoidable, unfair way, because that kills pacing. Max Payne is a story game, and the gameplay serves to enhance the story, but the gameplay eventually becomes so difficult that any pacing the story had built up through cutscenes or voice acting or novel pages is thrown out and replaced with frustration at the mechanics. Emotionally, you want the player to be angry at the mob and focused on hunting down the in-game enemies. You want the player's righteous fury focused on the narrative reasons to be angry, because they are Max Payne and that's what he is angry at. What you don't want to do, which the game does all too often, is pull the player out of this excellent narrative back into reality and have them be angry at the mechanics. The grenade which bounced around the corner and killed them 5 times already. You don't want to give the player a mechanical reason to be angry, you want to give them a narrative reason to be angry and a mechanical reason to find catharsis in sating this anger. Being Max Payne. Progress through the hotel by shooting this broken boiler and collapsing it onto the weakened floor, and then find this room which has a secret film booth hidden inside the closet and a room full of tapes, and a diary on the bed.
The diary belonged to a hooker named Candy Dawn. The read would have made a vice cop blush.
Had talks with the mystery hag over the phone again. Sent her the latest One-Eyed Alfred tape. As long as the hag keeps paying for the tapes, the old man could come every day for all I care.
She had a nice sideline, making secret X-rated flicks of her clients and selling them to the highest bidder. It would get her killed if her V-fix for the day didn't do it first.
This discovery of both the diary and the room will matter later. Find the lift and head down to the laundry room. Another fun little set-piece fight, and then more TV updates.
A winter storm warning is in effect in the whole tri-state area, as both freezing rain and heavy snowfall continue. Many roadways are already closed, and people are advised to stay indoors. The severe blizzard has ravaged New York for 3 days now, with no end in sight.
We'd been snowed from the start in the Valkyr case. The forecast said there was plenty more where that had come from. But the snowbound city was on my side. Less chance of innocent bystanders getting caught in the crossfire.
The current citywide snowstorm is mentioned often and mainly serves to create this overwhelming sense of isolation, power and fury, an unstoppable force of nature ravaging the whole city, dividing communities and blanketing every building and street with a layer of ice. It's cold, dangerous and uncaring, and it's exactly the kind of feeling the game wants you to get from the story and from Max himself. It also ties heavily into the Norse end of the world theme we'll begin to explore soon. We fight into the hotel basement, the furnace room, and see a man tied to a chair with a bloody baseball bat beside them. That is a lovely bit of foreshadowing for later, and is a great example of how you can tie in the minutiae and gameplay. And then another lovely bit of world building through this overheard conversation through a door.
Take vampire movies. Why are they always set in L.A. or Mexico? They can't even get a tan. If I was a bloodsucker, I'd move to the North Pole. Winter's one long night.
Yeah, and what would you eat? Suck blood from penguins?
Nah, Eskimos, man, Eskimos.
It's an absurd conversation which pushes Max Payne even further into the dark comedy realm. The kitchen shootout is another nice area, and we crash our first Valkyr sale. You can close the lids on the briefcases. It's another nice touch, but unfortunately is never used mechanically. Okay, right, let's do this. If you're going to add in the fun little touch of you can close and open the briefcase, then find a fun way to tie that to the overall feeling and in-game mechanics. Imagine the graphic novel starts talking about dirty deals going down with laundered money and everyone wants a piece. Then imagine if the briefcase started closed, and if you did open the briefcase and then lead enemies into the room as they chase you, they would get distracted and walk over to the briefcase beginning to examine it, letting you jump out of cover and shoot them easily. And if you do, the slow motion kill cam happens and green bills fly up into the air from the case. And maybe you get a nice little voice quip like, "Red splashed on green. With the storm outside, you'd think it was Christmas." Suddenly, you've given the player a mechanical advantage for interacting with the world on a narrative scale, enhancing both the world and your connection to it. Currently, all these small interactions do is just make you go, "Huh, that's neat." And it feels lacking. We fight through the bar and find Rico. He's hanging out with Candy, the call girl who was making tapes with her clients through the hidden recording room. This leads to a shootout against Rico and Candy and some thugs, and also the first part where I die so many times I lose count. Candy is a bullet sponge. Rico runs off and goons run at you, pushing you back, and what started as a fun shootout turns into an exercise in memorization and luck. Finally, we kill Rico, literally catching him with his pants down, and then find an old phone switchboard in the hotel closet.
There was an old telephone switchboard in the back room of the reception area. Kind that made phone tapping child's play.
Boss, Corneli, this is Max Payne. He came, started capping us. He killed.
Are you freaking kidding me? He's just one lousy cop. You better be freaking kidding me. Whack him. What's the freaking problem? Hello? Answer me. Hello?
The word was out. A deadly virus released into the city's corrupt circulatory system. Something wicked this way comes. Max Payne at large.
With the word out, Max Payne has no allies left, and after shooting your way through even more hotel, you finally drop through a glass roof and the music really kicks in. Now, there are only 3 or 4 moments in the whole game where combat music happens. In one way, the infrequent use of fight music keeps the event special, but in another, I do feel it's very much underused. It's quite fun to get the adrenaline pumping with the background action beats while you're rolling and slow-mo dodging. It contrasts nicely with the vast majority of the game's soundtrack, which is almost entirely in-world ambience. The music of each level is just local work and life noises, and then sometimes distant relevant sound effects. Combined with the storm and the idea of communications being down, the audio of Max Payne is one of reserved, stoic ambience. While the game does have a main theme, it's a very simple, downplayed melody. Finally escaping the hotel, we discover another player, a competing mobster. Vlad from the Russian Mafia is bombing Punchinello's businesses. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, and this will come into play later. I also laugh at the car's license plate being vodka. They are really leaning into the stereotype for all parties. This level now has a more open feel. You're outside in the street and need to find a way to the top floor apartment, which will hopefully lead you to Jack Lupino or more Punchinello family members. This means going into several open businesses until you find your way through. I interrupt a Russian mob meeting and then finally find the critical path, which involves running into one of the exploding buildings. Now, in a nice touch, your way back is blocked off by an explosion, which links up to the bombs that Vlad was mentioning earlier, and this corridor is collapsing. This is a great example of overall story elements tying into mechanics. The building is being bombed and it's personally affected you. Now, to open this door, you need to shoot a gas cylinder, which makes another cylinder blast toward it like a missile, but I stand in the wrong place and blow myself up with the cylinder. Now, I admire the cinematic nature of Max Payne, and I admire the freedom of allowing the player to be where they like. But I feel these designs clash a lot, and you need to have checks and balances to make sure you're getting the best of both worlds and not detracting from both. If you have a cinematic moment you want the player to experience, like a film, such as blasting a gas cylinder into a door, and the set piece cannot be moved or set up in any other way than the designers intended, then making sure the player cannot be in the blast zone would make sense. Because this isn't a puzzle to be solved, it's a spectacle to be experienced. But But if you were to have the cylinders just lying around the corner and the player needs to interact with them and move them into position, effectively building their own makeshift bomb to blow the door open, then allowing the player to be wherever they want would give them the freedom they need. But this specific moment is the worst of both designs. It's a set-piece puzzle you cannot alter beyond activating it, but you've also got the freedom to be in the wrong place when you activate it and die to your own activation of a cinematic set piece, which kills the well-paced film aspect and doesn't enhance the playable interactive video game aspect. But finally we fight into the building and find a ringing phone.
A beaten-up phone in the entrance hall was ringing. It could have been just a junkie in need of a fix, but it turned out to be something more sinister than that.
Am I speaking to Mr. Payne?
Who wants to know?
My name is Alfred Woden. You must hurry. The police are on their way.
Tell me something I don't know.
They know you're there.
How? And what's it to you?
I will contact you again.
The cops arrived, sirens singing in the off-key harmony of a manic-depressive choir. I had a few minutes while the SWAT team would go through their usual routine. By the time they busted in, I needed to be long gone.
The plot thickens. A man named Alfred Woden knows who we are and seems to want to help, and because this building is being bombed, the SWAT are on their way. What I love is Max's calm response to knowing the SWAT team are turning up, because he knows the procedure. They'll negotiate. This creates this lovely focused calm in you toward what the mob would consider to be very, very bad. You know the SWAT aren't your enemy, but right now they are another problem. The battle through the building is a strange experience. Small bursts of intense fighting, normally ended by a rogue grenade or shotgun blast from a mobster, leading to quick loading and repeating the same section until you just about squeeze through. But by that time, the emotional weight of the section itself has been stripped away and replaced with just mechanical repetition. Finally, we find a broken stairwell, and the first time jumping has actually been needed. Finish our fight through the building, the passage to the roof is blocked, so we head down the stairwell back outside. We need to find access to another building's roof and then jump on over, but the only other building is mob controlled and we can't get in without a password.
To get to the roof, I'd need to get to the elevator through the locked door up ahead. Pizza delivery.
Never seen you before. Buzz off, Joker.
So we set off to find a mobster who knows the password. Now, do I feel bad grenading a bunch of addicts? I suppose I should do, narratively, but mechanically they're exactly the same as the regular bad guys, so there's no in-game reason to not kill them. It would have been really cool to see guys on V doing random things or shooting back against gangsters or crying to really highlight the aggressive nature of the drug. Eventually we find a guy who knows the password to get in, so we lead him back and this happens.
No, don't shoot. I...
You know the clowns at the laundry?
Me? No.
You're no good to me then.
What? No, the laundry, yeah. I know him, yeah.
Get me in there.
Okay. It's me. Open up. Let me in, quick.
Not so fast. The password. John Woo.
Come on. Okay, John Woo.
All right. Come right in.
It's a trap! It's Payne!
The password being John Woo is another self-aware joke. John Woo is a film director known for his elaborate action sequences and slow-mo gun battles, usually involving firing two guns while diving through the air. John Woo is known in the West for films like Hard Boiled, Broken Arrow, and Face Off. Indeed, one of the hardest levels in Max Payne is called Hard Boiled, and the Chinese release of Max Payne was retitled to A Better Tomorrow, which is itself a John Woo film. I know I've criticised the game heavily for not tying together relevant gameplay choices with the overall ambience or minutiae and detail enough, but this is a lovely moment where everything just works. The dark comedy, the knowledge of what's about to happen, the absurd situation, and the instant violence. This is a moment where level 3 and level 1 of storytelling both enhance and inspire your actions in level 2, and it just feels right. Beautiful. Just beautiful. I never thought I'd praise shooting a guy coming out of a toilet so much, but it just works so well for this game. And then another TV update.
New York City is in crisis tonight, with reports of Valkyrie-related gang war in the streets of the Bronx. Apparently, Max Payne, wanted for questioning in connection with the slaying of a DEA special agent earlier tonight, is waging a one-man war against his former partners in crime. Among the list of casualties so far are notorious mafia members Joey and Virgilio Finito, as well as Rico Muerte. Himself a fugitive from the law, and a suspect for several murders in the Chicago area.
We finally make it to the roof, cross to the building we actually want to be in, and now get our first taste of surreal horror. This TV is playing a show about a flamingo, and it's so absurd you're compelled to watch, but you are not prepared. I have not altered the sound of this.
It's the last place I wanted to go. But that well was nothing. Only it's not talking to a big flamingo, but someone who lives there on Gals could honestly tell, except that he's evil. I'm hiding in the shadows, watching it all unfold. The flamingo speaks. He can speak here. It says,
mirrors are more fun than television.
That's mirrors are more fun than television. Somehow I know this, just don't ask me how. And I, not me, but my double, nods and smirks at this, like it was the funniest thing in the world. And then something goes wrong, and suddenly they know I'm there, hiding behind them, and they both turn to look at me with cold eyes. And the flamingo speaks again.
Threshold falling angels.
I have no idea what that means. And that's when I always wake up to my own scream in that brightly lit white hospital room, strapped to my bed.
Unlike any other TV show, this show doesn't repeat. The TV turns itself off when it's done and cannot be turned back on. The strange speech is backwards. It's saying the flesh of fallen angels, a saying you've heard several times before from V-Junkies, and then it says mirrors are more fun than television. This disturbing interaction is a hint of things to come. Head round the corner and overhear another fun conversation.
Red, blue, or green?
It's always red or blue in the movies.
So, green?
No, not the green.
And now for one of the greatest visual gags in gaming history. This door is locked, and when you try to open it... Perfect example of absurd, unexpected humour becoming involved in gaming mechanics. Finally, we find Gogniti, one of the higher-ranking mob members.
Vinny Gogniti. Just the man I've been killing to see.
Pain? Freaking fed! I knew from day one there was something screwy about you. What do you think you're doing? You're a freaking cop. You ain't got squat on us. You can't just come in here waving your piece like it meant something. Yeah! Oh my God! Oh God, you shot me! Ah! You're dead, Pain! What the hell are you waiting for, you apes? Kill him! Kill him!
With pleasure, boss.
Gogniti bailed. I made like Chow Yun-Fat.
Chow Yun-Fat is another real-world reference. He is an actor who appears in lots of John Woo films. We survive the initial shootout and then find a letter discussing Jack Lupino.
A crumpled letter lay on Gogniti's desk. The letter was addressed to Don Punchinello, but Vinny had never had the nerve to finish it.
Jack's gone voodoo. Just the other night, he shot Dino because he wanted to see what his brains looked like splattered on the wall. He's a freaking mad dog. We're running out of men and business fast.
Gogniti had been living in mortal fear of his boss. Jack Lupino was a psycho.
Gogniti runs off before we can kill him, so we chase him down, and Sam, the writer and director, gets even more chances to really cement himself as the master of quotable lines.
Vinny Gogniti was running scared. He could run, but with a bullet in his stomach like a broken bottle of Tabasco, he was quickly running out of time. He knew where his boss was, and I wanted to square things up with Jack Lupino. Gogniti would be moving fast. I don't know about angels, but it's fear that gives men wings.
The Gogniti chase is pretty basic, just going across the rooftops, but I do like this low camera angle shot of the jump across the roof. This is another homage to The Matrix, which used the same angle. Eventually, Gogniti dives onto a passing train, so we wait for the next train and then try to do the same. Unfortunately, I just leap to my death. Right, let's talk about jumping. There are several points in the game where a cinematic dive into or over something is needed, but if you do a regular jump, you will fall short. You need to do a slow motion dive roll. There are of course other moments where jumping is tied to the frame rate, and if you're running the game at a higher frame rate, you physically cannot make the jump, but we will get to that. Having the player die because they used the wrong jump in a cinematic moment which requires a jump is terrible pacing. We follow the trail of blood from the injured Gogniti and then get sniped by enemies with pistols on another rooftop. Now, while enemy placement is consistent, enemy accuracy isn't, and a lucky headshot from a goon can instantly kill you. We make it into another building, and now a pretty major glitch, in fact the first one I've experienced. The model of Gogniti has just stopped on the stairs. You can't hurt him. And at the bottom of the stairwell, enemy NPCs are just standing around. This is clearly a missed event trigger. But when I head down the stairs, the camera switches to this overhead view, meaning likely a cutscene camera view, but I can't see myself, and gameplay has resumed. And I'm still in control of Max, even though I can't see him, and I get killed by all the other enemies that I also can't see. This glitch is actually pretty bad. The only way I survived was throwing a grenade down before the enemies become active, trigger the event, and memorize the route to run back upstairs while the camera's frozen. Dodge the enemies through sheer luck, and then when the camera finally snaps back, win the shootout. The chase continues outside, through some alleys, up some lifts, and around this construction project. Nice bit of visual storytelling here, showing a policeman in a box, like a coffin. I thought maybe this is setting up a greater, darker subplot, but nah, it's just done once because it looks cool. Fight along more rooftops and eventually past some billboards advertising the Acer Corporation. Slogan, a bit closer to heaven. And then another billboard about the voice of the angels. And then a final advert referring to an American Avenger. All of these sound quite biblical, quite religious, and they will all tie together pretty soon. Push on, break into another apartment, and another TV update.
Max Payne has nowhere left to go. We are very close to capturing him. You'll get a full statement then. Right now, I've got better things to do, ma'am.
That was Deputy Chief Jim Rivera from the NYPD with no further comment at this time.
Apart from his suspicious food habits, I figured Bravura to be one of the good guys. Fate had just dropped us on different sides in this. But when it came to capturing me, he was way out of his league. I had already ditched the cops a couple of rooftops back. For now.
More gunplay, more grenades. Max Payne is effectively a corridor shooter with none of the more nuanced mechanics which enhance corridor shooters, like cover mechanics peeking around corners or leading enemies into traps. Outside we finally corner Gogniti, but he's surrounded by goons. I also learned there's quite intense fall damage, and if you slow-mo dive down some stairs you'll take a large chunk off your own health. Another issue here is the audio balancing is off quite substantially, and sometimes sound effects are far louder and far cleaner than they should be, like they've been recorded inside a studio, isolated from the context or environment they're meant to be happening in.
Open, goddammit! Pain! I'll kill you, you lousy freaking cop!
Eventually, after diving left to right several times and emptying several full clips into Gogniti, he goes down.
Gogniti ran out of steam in a dead-end alley with steam boiling out of the sewer grates like all the fires of hell were burning high beneath us. It was shakedown time. Where's Lupino?
Screw you!
Bad start, Vinny.
Ah! Police brutality!
I rate pretty high on that.
You can't just hurt me in cold blood?
Just keep telling yourself that. Listen good, Candyman. I'm not gonna be anybody's fall guy. I want to know where your boss is hiding. There was no glory in this. I hadn't asked for this crap. Trouble had come to me in big dark swarms. The good and the just were like gold dust in the city. I had no illusions. I was not one of them. I was no hero. Just me and the gun and the crook. My options had decreased to a singular course.
I'll tell you, just don't hurt me no more. Lupino's at Ragnarok, the nightclub. Book me, take me, haul me to the freaking jail, just don't hurt me.
Your rights will be ready at your funeral.
So we're closing in on Jack Lupino, who can lead us to the Punchinello bigwigs connected to the supply of Valkyr and help us find who shot Alex in the subway and get revenge for our own family. Lupino's club is called Ragnarok, the Norse end of days. It fits the apocalyptic blizzard vibe quite nicely. There's even graffiti inside talking about the big bad Fenris wolf, connecting to Jack Lupino's name, Lupino being lupine and lupine being Latin for wolf. In a rather annoying touch, even if the levels have a short gap of narrative travel between them, you can serve health and painkillers and ammo between levels, so I'm starting the club section on low health as I got torn up by Gogniti's bodyguard fight. The club itself is empty of customers but full of enemies, and the enemies now have Molotov cocktails, which leads to this lovely slow-mo dive into a cocktail resulting in my own burning death. The club is large, and it's covered in occult symbols from varying beliefs, but it's very surface-level reference. It's purely for visual flair and doesn't actually affect gameplay. The club itself has a very liminal feel to it, a transition space between, a space we usually know as being full and active, now empty, and the pounding music is replaced with the angry insistence of gunshots and grenades. Eventually we break into the back rooms and find what Lupino likes to spend his time doing.
Books on the occult had been piled on the table. The room was stacked with light reading, such as Necronomicon, Witchcraft, and Paradise Lost. Old exotic titles like Malleus Maleficarum and De Umbrarum Reini Novum Portus. Books with pentagrams on their covers, all dealing with the occult and the infernal, lying between stacks of horror videos and a couple of Ouija boards. The only thing I could take seriously was the thought of Lupino taking it seriously. He had been spending a lot of time getting intimate with the guy downstairs.
I like the fact Max doesn't take this seriously, but he knows that Lupino does, and that fanatical devotion to the idea of becoming powerful through the occult, in a rather insane way, makes him powerful. The club now takes on more religious overtones, the church-like walls and windows, the gothic architecture, the club music replaced with chanting, and now a really disappointing moment again. The level loops around, except we are one floor higher, and we're back in the dance hall from earlier, except now we have access to the pyro control deck, which causes small explosions on the main stage, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe this will be relevant for later, for taking down a big boss using the environment or burning some scenery away for some platforming, but no. All this does is make sparks happen. This is the in-game equivalent of a child's play toy making noise. It's a fleeting design choice of, oh cool, and then instantly irrelevant. I'm not annoyed that you can do it. I'm annoyed and disappointed that there's no reason to do it, no advantage to be gained from doing it at the right time. Shootout in this wine room, and for some reason the camera switches to a rising angle. Now in filmmaking this would be to highlight the importance of the table or to make the audience feel insignificant in this room compared to the event happening in the room itself, but no, there's no reason to do this. Just a room. Run through into the stairwell, trigger a hidden trapdoor and fall to my death. Why? Seriously, why? What's the point? You never see any enemies die this way, so you have no warning. You can't use it as a trap, and you can't react to it and avoid death if you trigger it by accident. It's just a straight up, if you stand here, you die design, but nothing warns you of this. And if it was used in a narrative sense by Lupino as a sacrifice pit, at least it would relate to the story, but again, it doesn't. By now, you're also having to play at 100% health at all times, because even if you're only slightly injured, enemy shotgun blasts will...
Dude, I did fall asleep.
Strange level design touch. We now fight across these roof beams to another door, and then
shit.
blizzard across the roof into another section of the club.
Fuck.
And while I know I have my complaints and heavy critiques of this game, and sometimes the cinematic kill cam may mess up, every now and again it captures a beautiful moment of cinematic glory like this.
Good night.
Back into the club, and I've started being pedantic, so I'll finish. We are on the stage, and if you run over the guitar on the floor, it plays a note, and if you stand by the drums and interact, you'll blast out a